Many people wonder what really happened at Mount Sinai. Some 3,300 years ago, the Torah tells us God gathered all of the Jewish people through Moses, standing at the foot of Mount Sinai, and God declared what people refer to colloquially as the Ten Commandments. And that was the beginning of a relationship that God forged with the Jewish people and, by extension, to the whole world. But what exactly happened? We know from the Torah's description, the people were standing there. They were overwhelmed by the revelation of the divine. It was a very powerful, in fact, the most powerful experience in all of human history. And it was the beginning of the forging of a nation under God, following God's commandments. But something much more profound really happened, and that has a relevance to our lives today as well. You see, we often translate the Hebrew Aseret HaDibrot as the Ten Commandments. I can't say it's a mistranslation because these are commandments, but the body known as the Ten Commandments actually contain more than 10 commandments. The so-called Second Commandment speaks about not having other gods, not creating images of God. So there is more than just 10 commandments there. And when you talk to a Jew about how many commandments are there, the Jew will tell you, if he's knowledgeable at all, 613 commandments. So what do we mean by these 10 commandments? And in fact, the Hebrew expression, Aseret HaDibrot, doesn't mean literally translated 10 commandments, but 10 statements. And you can say, well, what's the big deal? Statements, commandments. These are statements that tell you what to do. Don't steal, don't kill, and so on. So they are commandments, but when saying they are statements, it's much more powerful than just commandments. And this takes us to a deeper understanding of what happened to us at Mount Sinai, because who was God referring to when he's telling them these 10 statements? He's referring not only to the multitudes of people who were standing at Mount Sinai, and we don't know exact numbers, but we can only estimate there were between 2 and 3 million people, because there were 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, and then count all the senior citizens and all the children and all the women, and then there was a multitude of nations that joined the Jewish people. So we have to say there were at least 2 million, perhaps a lot more, that were present there. But our sages tell us that it was not just those 2 million. It was every single Jewish soul was standing at Mount Sinai. Anyone who would ever be born at any period in all of history was there at Mount Sinai. So, what exactly happened to these souls that were alive then physically and that were not yet alive? Well, the key to understanding that lies in the very first of the statements, in the 3 opening words. The 3 opening words are Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am, translated in English, I am God, your God. Some will translate, I am the Lord your God, but we're not going to go into those nuances about the different names and how to translate God's name into English. We will do something close to that by explaining the difference between the first mention of God and the second mention of God. I am God, your God. The word for God here is the Yud K Vav K, the tetragrammaton, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, which is the essential, ineffable name. We can't even pronounce it. We don't even know how to pronounce it, but we're not allowed to pronounce it. It was only pronounced in the temple. And then Elokecha, your God, the word for God over here, Elokim, means power, your power. God is called Elokim. Not only God is called Elokim, judges are called Elokim because they have power. Angels are called Elokim because they are the instruments of power in this world. So what do we mean when we say, I am God, your power? So the answer and the explanation given in Hasidic thought is that up until Mount Sinai, our spiritual energy was a natural spiritual energy. was one that was subject to the limitations of time and space, one that even the patriarchs couldn't get beyond. The patriarchs were the greatest of people, but their ability was only to reach the epitome of spirituality, of divinity that was vested within the physical world. And that's saying a lot, because most people of that time and even of today do not realize their full potential, or not even close to it. They did realize their full potential. The Torah, when it describes Abraham, it says he would be traveling to the south. The south is symbolized as a symbol of love. Abraham pursued the love of God from one level to another until he reached the pinnacle. And likewise, Isaac in his own way, his trait, and Jacob in his trait, which we won't go into. What happened at Sinai is God says, I, my essence. And then the second word, which is the name of God that has in it the three tenses of past, present, and future. I was, I am, I will be. The God that transcends all boundaries of time and space. That power of God that transcends nature, Elokecha, will be your power, will be vested in you. That means that at Mount Sinai, we were empowered to transcend nature, to transcend the limits that the world that we live in imposes on us. You know, there's a big debate amongst theologians and philosophers if morality is something that is intrinsic, it's natural. They call it natural law, that if we were able to fathom the secrets of nature, we would discover all of the different teachings that teach us how to live a proper life. And then you have the theory that no, law has to be positive law. It has to come from the outside, imposing itself on us. Now, of course, in our society today, we have government that imposes itself on us. If we wouldn't have government, we could never rely that we would figure out what's right and what's wrong on our own and abide by that. So we need an outside power, even in the secular realm. But is morality intrinsic or it's extrinsic? Now, it seems from the Talmud that morality is intrinsic. There is a concept of natural law. What is the basis for that? The Talmud says if God had not given us the Torah, we would be compelled to learn morality from nature, from animals. And the Talmud describes different animals that have positive traits. So that means that you can just look at nature and you could figure out what's right and what's wrong. We therefore have a belief that nature does teach us morality. But that's the type of morality that existed before Sinai. Abraham, it says, was taught the Torah by his kidneys. Now, whatever that means is beyond me. That's a very mystical concept, but there might be a simple explanation as well, that kidneys are a filter, that when you learn from nature, you have to know how to filter out. Let's say you could learn positive things from a lion, but you don't want to learn the fact that lions just jump on their prey and rip them to pieces. So you need a filtration process to filter out the negatives and to embrace the positives. That was what existed before Sinai. At Sinai, God says, I'm now going to instill within you a dimension of godliness that transcends nature, that's beyond nature, and that will be implanted into your nature. What does that tell us? That tells us that from Sinai onward, we were programmed to be transcendent beings, that when we want to do what's right, we don't have to look outside of us. We don't have to look into another realm. That other realm, capital O, the word other, that godly realm, that transcendent realm has been implanted in us. And as a result, these are not 10 commandments. These are 10 statements. God is telling us, this is the way you are. I am God, your God. Not that you don't have any other gods. You cannot have any other gods. What do you mean you can't have? Everyone has free choice. Yes, that's true. But the question is, when you choose to do right, or God forbid, if you choose to do wrong, what does that really mean? When you choose to do right, you're choosing to be yourself, to conform to that divine dynamic that was planted in us at Sinai, that was programmed into us at Mount Sinai. Whereas if you choose to do the wrong thing, you are choosing to go against who you are. If we just say commandments, that would mean, yes, God tells us what we can do, what we shouldn't do, and we have a choice to do one or the other. And we're not programmed either way. And the answer is no, we are programmed to do what's right. That's what defines who we really are. However, God also gave us the power of bechira, free choice, to be able to go against our very nature, which is also a godly power. Only God has true free choice, and He endowed us with that. It's very empowering to know that when we are told to do what's right, a mitzvah, or not to do what's wrong, that we are choosing to do what defines us as Jews, what defines us as human beings. That's our intrinsic nature. Right now, we may not be aware of it. We don't feel it. In the days of Mashiach, in the Messianic age, that reality will become the reality not just deeply embedded within us, it'll be overtly appreciated and recognized. So the Messianic age is not going to change us. It's just going to enable us to really be who we are in a most revealed way.